Hello fellow book nerds, Emmy Walker here to do this week's Top 5 Wednesday! This week's topic is Top 5 Books You Are Intimidated to Read. I find that in most cases, intimidating books are books that are very long, but that is not always the case when it comes to being intimidated by a book. And two of my books at least will show you that. Maybe. In my number 5 spot is actually not a single book, it is a series of books, and that is the rest of the books in the Vampire Chronicles series by Anne Rice. And I've read the first two, The Interview with the Vampire and then The Vampire Lestat, which I absolutely loved, especially the second one. But I'm afraid to get into the rest of the series simply because I loved, well, first of all, it's a long series. I mean, it's not the longest series I've ever seen or even own, but it's a long series. Secondly, because I loved The Vampire Lestat so very much that I'm afraid that I'm just going to be disappointed from here on out. And I've actually heard that they're not as good once you get past the Lestat. Not that they're bad, but that The Vampire Lestat is so good that it's just, in comparison, the others are just, you know, sitting in the shadow of the glory that is The Vampire Lestat. So I'm a little bit intimidated. I don't know if that's necessarily the intimidated. I'm taking it as intimidated, but it's more of a fear that I'm not gonna like it. But I am intimidated by the size of the series itself, so I'm counting it. Next up, in my number 4 spot, is the third book in the All Souls trilogy. This is The Book of Life. I have said that this is by Deborah Harkness. I have said that I'm going to read this one by the end of the year. I'm still very intimidated by it. It's not very long. I mean, it's over 500 pages. It's almost 560 pages, which is a big book. But that's not what makes it scary, because I've read longer books. The scary part about this one here is that it's so dense. The author, Deborah Harkness, is an historian. I can't remember exactly what she does, but I know she's an historian in some capacity. I think she teaches it or studies it, or I'm not sure. But anyway, because of that, she goes into a lot of detail because she knows what she's doing. I mean, these books kind of they kind of go into the past, and I think they jump back and forth a little bit. But anyway, so she knows what she's doing when it comes to like the history of the world, or at least this type of kind of atmosphere. But because she knows so much, she's able to put so much detail into things, and that can make it a bit daunting when you're reading it. So I'm a bit afraid to get into this, but I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna. In my number 3 spot is book 2 in the Kingkiller Chronicles. This is The Wise Man's Fear by Patrick Rothfuss. The first book was The Name of the Wind. And the first book was long. This one is equally long, if not longer, over 1,000 pages. I'm still flipping through, and 1,100 pages. That's a lot of pages, especially with teeny tiny print. But the book is great. The first book was, at least. I can't speak for this one. I haven't read it, obviously. But it's a lot of pages. It's a lot to digest. It's scary. It's scary to think that this will eventually all be in my brain. Not for long, because I'm sure it'll push something else out, and then it'll be pushed out, but still, that's a terrifying amount of pages with such teeny print. It'll be done. In my number 2 spot is another book that is terrifying because of its size, and that is Le Morte Arthur, and this is by Sir Thomas Malory. And this is not only intimidating because of its size, because it is 900 pages plus, 900 plus pages, but it's also, now, okay, I know that the Arthurian legends are fiction, I get that, but there's just some small or large piece, you know, spot in the back of my mind that believes that this really happened. I don't know if it's because before I discovered when I was still a kid and I thought that King Arthur was real, like all that stuff in Merlin and all that, I thought that was real or what, and it just kind of stuck with me and I can't let go of it. But anyway, so it's another reason why I find it daunting is because I believe it's nonfiction, even though it's not, I know, but because I believe it's nonfiction and nonfiction scares me, it scares the bejeebers out of me. That's another reason why I'm intimidated by this book. But I want to read it so much because I love Arthurian legend stuff. But I'm just so afraid. And in my number 1 spot for most intimidating reads is Marcel Proust's Swanns Way. Now, I will be completely honest with you, the only reason I ever picked this book up was because of watching Gilmore Girls, and if you have ever watched that, you know that Lorelai picks it up and never reads it because it's so daunting. Just the sentences themselves are very long. They're not quite as long. She says it's like, she's like, oh, the first sentence is 20 pages. That's not true. But they are long sentences, lots of semicolons and the like. But I have no idea what this is about. I don't even think I ever read it, but it's one of those books that I've always wanted to read. I don't know if I'll ever read it, to be honest with you, but I did get the audiobook, so I'm determined to at least listen to it and, you know, enrich my mind. Another reason why this is so daunting is because it's just literary fiction, and literary fiction for me is a bit scary because I find that I enjoy reading fantasy. I can kind of fly through that stuff usually because I love escaping into that world, but I don't necessarily escape quite as easily into a more realistic world. Alright, so baby is crying, and that means I have to get going. Let me know your top 5 most intimidating books down below. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. I'll see you later, book nerds! In my number 3 spot is, drop the book. This is, the name of the excuse me, oh my god. Oh my god. In my number 2 spot is a book that I just forgot. In my number 2 spot is, what was I gonna say? Oh my gosh, I have no brain today. Molly, it's your fault, I'm blaming you. You're sucking up all the brain.